Welcome to Hogwarts. Chapter Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. September 1, 1992. 12-year-old Harry Potter stared up in awe at the looming castle as he and the other first years walked towards it, led by a giant man who introduced himself as Hagrid to the group. Harry had heard stories of the large man from his mother, but this was the first time he'd laid eyes on Hagrid. It's amazing, isn't it? A girl asked eagerly on Harry's left. The girl was quite beautiful, with brown bushy hair and big brown eyes. She, unlike some of the girls in this crowd, had yet to really blossom into her curves and assets. Yeah, it is, Harry agreed, leaning his head back to look at the castle again, and then he looked back at the beautiful bushy-haired girl. I'm Harry. Harry Potter. Oh, I've read about you in some history books. Is it true what they say? You know, that you defeated you-know-who when you were just a baby? The girl asked. Harry hesitated before answering, but the girl really did just seem to be genuinely curious. He couldn't sense any harmful intent whatsoever. I certainly weakened him, yes, but I don't believe Voldemort is really gone. I imagine he's just trying to get back some of his power before he does. Harry said in a reasonable tone. You're awfully brave about that, the girl said in surprise. I've accepted it. I know one day, I'll have to fight, but for right now, I'm just going to try and enjoy my time at Hogwarts. Harry said. I'm Hermione Granger. I realized I didn't introduce myself. The girl said hastily. It must be because I'm so interesting. Harry chuckled. The girl, Hermione, laughed. Must be, she agreed. Hagrid paused on the shore of a lake, and gestured to a bunch of small wooden boats. 4 to a boat, now! Hagrid shouted. Harry and Hermione stepped into a boat together, and were joined by 2 other girls, one of whom Harry knew rather well. Hello, Daphne, Harry greeted the girl with the golden blonde hair and ice blue eyes. She, unlike Hermione, had definitely begun blossoming, and sported a rather sizable pair of breasts on her chest, and though it wasn't quite as noticeable in her Hogwarts robes, he knew she also had some lovely curves. Harry's mother Lily had spoken to Harry about how witches tended to develop faster than Muggle girls. Harry's Auntie Bella had chimed in then about how pure-blooded girls developed faster than Muggle-born girls. The golden blonde girl, Daphne Greengrass, tilted her head at Hermione curiously. This is Hermione Granger. Hermione, this is Daphne Greengrass. Our mums are friends. Harry introduced Hermione and Daphne to each other. Harry's attention slid to the girl beside Daphne, who Harry didn't recognize. Oh, Harry, this is Pansy Parkinson, Daphne said with a small smile. Pansy was a strikingly pretty girl, with dark brown hair and deep green eyes. Unlike Harry's own vivid, bright green eyes, hers were dark and rather mysterious. She had angular features that weren't like any girl Harry had ever seen, but they really worked for her. Pleasure to meet you, Pansy gave Harry the sort of smile that would make a shyer boy blush. Fortunately for Harry, he'd grown up around beautiful women, so he wasn't unused to attention from them. There was a certain Vila girl 3 years his senior who was Harry's first major crush and still was, frankly. If he could endure hours with only her and her much younger sister for company, he could pretty much handle anything a girl could throw at him, he felt like. Nice to meet you, too, Harry smiled back at Pansy. The little wooden boats propelled forwards by magical means, and they sailed smoothly across the lake in the night, and their views of the castle were lit by numerous torches. The whole place is rather breathtaking, isn't it? Daphne voiced an opinion rather similar to the first words Hermione had spoken to Harry. Yes, it is, Hermione agreed. What house are you hoping for? Pansy asked the group, but Harry noticed her eyes lingered on his. I don't have any real preference. They all have their pros and cons, I think. My parents were Gryffindors, so that's a bit of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, I can honor my father's legacy, but I'm also constantly going to be compared to my parents, you know. Harry revealed something he had never spoken to his mother. Hermione shook her head in confusion, but Daphne nodded in total understanding. I know a bit about parents leaving legacies wherever they go. Daphne nodded. Harry knew what she was referring to, but chose not to reveal Daphne's family secrets to Pansy and Hermione. The boats were drawing near to the opposite shore now, at a dock at the base of a great flight of stone steps leading up to the castle proper. All the wooden boats magically pulled up alongside the dock. Hagrid, who took up a whole boat himself, stepped out onto the dock first, and the first years followed suit in a rush. Hagrid led the crowd up the steps. None of the first years were sorted yet, so they were a mess of indistinguishable black robes. Harry spotted several interesting people. He saw 2 stunning Indian girls who were practically identical. He saw a boy with white blonde hair who he unfortunately recognized. There was also a red-headed girl with impressively large breasts who certainly caught Harry's eye. Hagrid led the first years to a large set of double doors where a woman in emerald robes awaited them. She had a severe air about her, and despite her age, it was evident she was once beautiful, though age may have diminished it somewhat. My name is Professor McGonagall. I will be leading you into the Great Hall, where you will be sorted into one of 4 houses, Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff, or Slytherin. The woman stated. Hagrid nodded at the woman and set off into the hall behind her, presumably heading into the Great Hall. This way, please, Professor McGonagall said, and turned on a heel and walked briskly into Hogwarts, leaving a crowd of first years in her wake, a crowd who hastily set off to follow her. McGonagall led the first years into a grand hall with 4 long tables filled with people. Harry noticed floating candles up towards the ceiling, and they really set an atmosphere. Harry looked at the occupants of the high table where the professors sat, and one such professor caught his eye. His mother, Lily Evans, taught Muggle studies, and she gave him a warm smile. Lily Evans had long red hair with a bit of waviness to it sometimes, and bright green eyes, same as Harry's. She also, Harry couldn't help but notice, sported a rather large bosom, one that she was never particularly bashful about, sometimes going as far as to show it off, especially when hanging out with Auntie Bella. Harry returned his beautiful mother's smile, and then set his attention back on the room. The far left table's occupants had a green shield on the breast of their robes, emblazoned with a silver snake. The one to the immediate right was a blue shield with a bronze eagle. The one to the right of that was a scarlet shield with a gold lion, and then the far right was a yellow shield with a brown badger. McGonagall walked down the wide aisle between Ravenclaw and Gryffindor's tables, and the students followed, approaching a raised platform where a hat sat on a 3-legged stool. Students, please step forwards when your name is called and place the hat on your head. It will sort you into your house, and then you may go and sit at the corresponding table. McGonagall declared, and then she unfurled a scroll. Abbott, Hannah. Hannah Abbott was a shy-looking slim blonde girl who walked shakily up to the stool and placed the hat on her head before sitting down. Hufflepuff. The sorting hat erupted, and the far right table with the badger crest broke out into cheers. The next student to be sorted was Bones, Susan, and she was the buxom redhead Harry had noticed on the walk up from the boats. Harry caught Susan's eye when she was sitting on the stool, and Susan gave Harry a small, nervous smile, which he returned. Hufflepuff. The sorting hat declared, and Susan hurried off to join Hannah. Boot, Trevor, was next, and he was put in Ravenclaw. Brocklehurst, Mandy, was a gorgeous raven-haired girl with blue eyes like sapphires. She was also sorted into Ravenclaw House. Brown, Lavender, became a Gryffindor, while Bulstrode, Millicent, became a Slytherin. Harry then sort of tuned out a bit of the ceremony. He tuned back in at Goyle, Gregory, who became a Slytherin, and then it was Hermione's turn. She walked forwards and sat down on the stool, placed the hat on her head, and Ravenclaw, the sorting hat shouted. Hermione gave Harry a delighted smile and then rushed over to join the eagle-bearing Ravenclaws. Daphne was next, and went up to the stool and sat down on it delicately. She placed the hat on her golden locks, and a few seconds passed. A moment of deliberation, Harry presumed. Slytherin, the sorting hat declared, and Daphne went over to join the snake-bearing Slytherins. Jones, Megan, and Lee, Sue, were the next 2 students, with the former going to Hufflepuff and the latter going to Ravenclaw. Longbottom, Neville, became a Gryffindor, McDougal, Isabel, became a Ravenclaw, Malfoy, Draco, became a Slytherin, Malone, Roger, became a Hufflepuff, Moon, Lily, became a Slytherin, as did, Not, Theodore, and Pansy. After Pansy was the 2 beautiful Indian twins. The first, Patil, Padma, became a Ravenclaw, while her twin, Patil, Parvati, became a Gryffindor. Perks, Sally Ann, became a Hufflepuff, and then it was Harry's turn. Students gasped and gossiped when McGonagall called Harry's name. He walked forwards and sat down on the stool, and placed the hat down on his head. What an intriguing mind, the sorting hat mused. I see courage in spades, but also intelligence, loyalty, and cunning. You could go in any house, and fit in perfectly. Yet, I think that means there's one house you'd be best in. Slytherin. Harry heard gasps of surprise across the entire Great Hall. He took the hat off his head and looked tentatively at his mother, but to his relief, she was smiling and clapping for him. He had worried for the briefest of moments that she might be upset he didn't get into Gryffindor, but no, she supported him. Harry felt a warm rush in his chest, and beamed at his mother before heading over to the Slytherin table, where he found that Daphne had saved him a seat. How'd you know? Harry whispered. You just had the right sort of look. Daphne replied with a smile. Pansy quickly appeared to sit on Harry's other side, and he found himself sandwiched between 2 beautiful girls. There were worse fates, to be sure. Roper, Sophie, a beautiful blonde girl who looked like she had some attitude, joined Slytherin. Turpin, Lisa, joined Ravenclaw. Weasley, Ronald, joined Hufflepuff, and Zabini, Blaise, joined Slytherin. After the 40-odd students had been sorted into their houses, Professor Dumbledore, a wise-looking old man, rose to his feet to address the hall. He talked about places students weren't allowed to go, talked about teamwork, cooperation, and then he waved his hands to summon platefuls of food onto each house's table, and Harry admittedly forgot what Dumbledore had said. He was rather hungry, after all. Harry chatted with Daphne and Pansy while he ate, as well as Blaise Zabini, who seemed decent enough. After the meal, Dumbledore rose to his feet and instructed prefects to lead their houses back to the common room. The Slytherin female prefect turned out to be a gorgeous girl of maybe 15 or 16 with white blonde hair, a lovely bust of 2, perky breasts, and some killer curves. She had what Harry thought of as a Quidditch physique, and wondered if she played. "My name is Cassandra Malfoy, and I am your prefect," she introduced herself, and Harry glanced incredulously at Draco Malfoy, her younger brother. He hadn't known Draco had an elder sister, especially not a hot one. Harry pushed forward so he could walk beside the sexy Slytherin prefect as she led them through the halls. "Do you play Quidditch?" Harry asked. "I do. I'm a chaser." "Why?" Cassandra Malfoy inquired. "Just curious. I'm a pretty good seeker, myself," Harry said a little boastfully, but he was telling the truth. "Seeker, huh, usually guys try to talk themselves up as beaters. You know, good at handling clubs," Cassandra said dryly. "Never gotten up close with any clubs," Harry said casually, and Cassandra had a small smirk on her face when he glanced at the older girl. "You have an opening on the Slytherin Quidditch team?" Harry wondered. "No, but our current seeker is awful. If only you were a second year, I'd recruit you on the spot." "You can't be any worse than our current seeker," Cassandra said, and Harry nodded. "I'll try out next year, then," he said. "Please do," she said sincerely. Cassandra stopped in front of a painting of a stormy night, and spoke a phrase that made no logical sense. The painting swung open, and Cassandra led the Slytherin students inside. The Slytherin common room was circular, with green sofas, green armchairs, silver tables, chairs, and desks, and windows looking into the lake, though it looked oddly greenish from inside here. "Girls' dorms are up and to the left, boys are up and to the right," Cassandra explained, pointing. "You'll be separated by year, so you'll get to know the people around you. If you need anything at all, I'll be hanging around the common room for the next few hours." The older Slytherin students headed up their respective staircases, as did some of the first years. Once the majority of the crowd had left, Daphne approached Harry with a small smile on her gorgeous face. "You feel like staying up late?" Daphne inquired. "Yeah, maybe." "Why?" Harry asked, raising an eyebrow. "You know, to play with me," Daphne said teasingly. "You mean like wizard's chess?" Harry asked, faking innocence. "We could do that, if you'd like. I'd kick your ass," Daphne said sweetly. "I'll take that bet," Harry grinned. "Let's throw in a galleon, make it exciting. We're both rich out of our minds, so the more money we add, the less it matters, I think," Daphne said. "I concur," Harry said, and went over to a table with the gorgeous blonde to play some chess. Chapter end notes. So, the story started with the sorting ceremony, and now we'll take a few steps backwards with some flashbacks to show about Harry's childhood with Lily, and then we'll continue the story after the flashback chapter.